21 guns, hearts made of pine, letter from the government, sealed and signed, delivered fed on Roll Express on your mother's doorstep.
We are back. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas, and in this short segment, I want to talk a little bit about the headlines this week that Obama may block the sun's rays using pollutants shot into the upper atmosphere. I mean, is this them just coming out and, you know, admitting to the chemtrail phenomenon?
It could be.
Mm-hmm.
Quite possibly could be. I think that what's been going on with the persistent jet contrails is that these haze and the man-made clouds produced by these jets, NASA states and the Intergovernment Panel on Climate Change scientists state that this is exacerbating global warming. They change our climate, and they negatively impact natural resources. And you can read this on the NASA website quite easily just by going there and typing in man-made clouds. And so what happens is that there's been some talk for over 20 years in scientific circles. There's a group called geoengineers, which are talking about, on a planetary scale, modifying the atmosphere, in other words, through the use of toxic chemicals or particulates. And it's come full circle because now they say, well, they're going to be stewards of the environment and they're going to save us from global warming. And how they're going to do that is to put up particulates or these chemicals. And what happens with them is that the idea is that they would cover the Earth and create a shield which would allow us to cool down. And so this is the theory behind it. And in 2006, a group of geoengineers met at NASA Ames and then had a public session at Stanford University. And at this public session, they really discussed intently that geoengineering had been kept out of the public light, the word even, and that they were ready to be the saviors of the Earth because when they were needed, they were going to jump in with all their schemes and plans to cool the Earth down. In other words, it wasn't going to be necessary really for us to curb our pollution and our emissions. It was going to be that they were going to save us by putting up these various shields. Everything from reflective mirrors floating above us to reflect the sunlight back. There was cloud cover. There was putting up of sulfur and dust in the air. By using ash. Carbon black was another one that was discussed at one point. But all of these chemicals are polluting, and they're going to degrade the quality of our life. But what these scientists didn't want to talk about is the fact that if you reduce the amount of sunlight reaching the Earth, flu viruses could become pandemic really easily because direct sunlight, in other words, stops the growth of the flu virus and molds and mildews, according to many scientists who talk about how to stop a pandemic of flu, for example. They say that the best disinfectant is direct sunlight.
Mm-hmm. And
the
plus,
other issue along that
D.
line, really quickly, is that if you put sulfur up, you're going to have acid rain as the sulfur comes down. So you have to keep putting particulates or chemicals up, which are going to cause disastrous consequences to air, water, and soil.
And then even on top of that, people need vitamin D to live. That's an essential vitamin that's provided by the sun. By blocking it, people are going to get less vitamin D, and there's been a ton of studies out there that, depression thrives where there is no sunlight because you're not getting this vitamin. So, I wonder how far they're going to take it. And, do you think that they're going to keep this as a NASA program, or do you think this is going to be expanded into, some other organization, like maybe even Homeland Security? Who knows?
It's hard to know where they're going to expand it, but almost all the universities have professors that are in this field, and they're just waiting for the money to be able to start their pet projects. And we won't even know the synergistic effects of all those projects if each of these universities starts putting up shields and doing different things with their pet projects. So it could be a great calamity, and you won't know what they're all doing because they all will get funding, and then they'll get permission from the government to do these various projects. So you would have military and university doing this.
On the other side, we're going to take your calls for Rosalind Peterson. It's 866-582-9933. It's the InfoWarrior with Jason Bermas, PrisonPlanet.tv, Infowars.com.
Those hoods are there for your protection, and the meteors these days are the size of corpses. There is a war going on for your mind. We are the insurgents.
All right, folks, we are back. CaliforniaSkywatch.com is the website. We're joined by Rosalind Peterson. Before we go to your calls, I just have a basic question. What is the difference between the traditional contrails that we've seen for years and years and years and what others would call chemtrails? I mean, what's the difference physically, scientifically? Is there a difference? What do you think?
There's a great big difference, and one is that contrails historically would be very short, dissipate within just a few seconds, and most people wouldn't even notice them most of the time. And what changed is in the late 1980s, where contrails began to persist. Instead of disappearing, they would persist for hours. One contrail now, according to NASA, can persist for up to 20 hours, cover 4,000 square kilometers, and create man-made clouds, white haze. There's all kinds of things that have changed. And so somewhere in the late 1980s, instead of having our blue skies and lots of sunlight and then kind of normal weather patterns and clouds that were real, we started to have a huge change. And this change is very abnormal and has really impacted and changed our climate. So the difference is that now when we see, especially military airplanes, the large ones out, we think it's almost a deliberate program because they'll loop around the horizon and work back and forth, crisscross patterns, and they'll cover the whole sky. Like here in Mendocino County, they can cover us over in man-made clouds and haze in about 3 hours at any one given time. And this never happened to us before. We would have normal weather fronts with regular clouds that would come through, rain out, and then go away. But we never had anything like this where the air was kind of smelled rancid. The sunlight is blocked for days on end so that direct sunlight doesn't reach the ground, and it impacts and reduces crop production. Because, anytime you put something in the sky that blocks direct sunlight, whether it's chemical, particulate, or man-made clouds, what you're doing is you're stopping direct sunlight from reaching plants and trees. And when you do that, the photosynthesis process, the sunlight which gives the plants energy to grow and produce crops, is substantially reduced. Solar power panels don't work as well, and the power, for example, in Shasta County here in California, on solar panels has been reduced by 30 to 60% anytime you have man-made clouds over us. So the process here is really changing the ability of solar power to be effective as well. And if the geoengineers want to, and the Obama administration want to put up man-made clouds, or they want to put up particulates or chemicals, what they're going to do is they're going to almost nullify the effectiveness of solar power in the United States, or solar-powered cars, and they're going to reduce crop production because you won't have direct sunlight.
Now, I have another question. Is there a difference in, say, the barium content of a traditional contrail and what we're seeing now? Is there a way to measure that? I mean, are there more toxins and heavy metals in these man-made clouds?
I can't tell you that for sure because I don't know. The problem is that barium and aluminum is used in many atmospheric programs. And Professor Gregory Benford of Irvine University has talked about mixing a little bit of aluminum and barium to make fluffy white clouds, and he refers to it as putting them where we want them to do what we want. So I'm not sure exactly how this process works, because no one wants to really talk about it or admit that it's going on or happening.
Mm-hmm. All this information, by the way, listeners, is over at CaliforniaSkywatch.com, and it is very well categorized. I mean, this is the end-all, be-all site on comtrails, chemtrails, whatever you want to call them, and she has done just some of the best research out there. That's why we have her on right now.